Hi, I'm Meg Tufano. Before I could begin thinking about narrative networks, especially modeling, simulating, and sensing narrative influence, I had to get a feel for what kinds of domains of knowledge would be required to answer such an incredibly deep and wide question. So I made a little cognitive map for myself. And I began with culture. I decided that culture pretty much covers all domains. No matter what we're going to be studying it, we're going to be studying it in a culture. I then started to think about where does religion and culture connect. And there is a religious element in the problems that we are seeing in the world. Religious conflicts, religious tones, even to things that aren't actually religious. So I wanted to see where does religion fit in. And of course, you know that one of religion's goals is to get out of culture, to reach some state where one has surpassed uh, whatever culture is. I then wanted to think about where I would place the military in this, and definitely I would not place our military. I definitely would not place them inside of the domain of religion, but they are influenced by culture. Next, I thought about politics. Politics obviously are in culture. Politics affects some of what goes on in the military. Politics is affected by culture. And interestingly, as we're watching this next presidential campaign start up, religion is starting to really be much more front and center in political power. So those domains definitely connect. And of course, politics has influence on the Pentagon, and the Pentagon probably has some influence on politics. So those domains cross. Next, I looked at economics. Economics is not my strong suit, but I was very impressed with the commentary during the workshop. I was at the 3-in-2 workshop by the economists there. And I believe that definitely economics is certainly in culture. It is enshrouded in culture. It definitely affects politics. And maybe there's a tiny connection to religion. We'll see how. Science. Now, it might seem unfair to put our entire Pentagon, our entire military defense inside the circle of science, but I have come to the conclusion that our culture has become so science-oriented that I think probably scientific considerations influence practically every element of the military. Um, Science, of course, is connected with economics, politics, religion, and although it is embedded in the culture, there is, in science as in religion, a kind of hope that one could find truths that are not culturally influenced. And so I left a little space there. Um, Science, of course, affects economics. The size of these circles, by the way, do not mean that one is more important than the other. It's just, these are just cognitive maps to see what domains affect what other domains. Science definitely affects politics. A little bit of science and religion are connected because scientific truths sometimes are in conflict with religious truths, so they definitely have some ideas to discuss with each other. Technology. Technology is the daughter of science. It has become enormously important to economics, important to politics, important to the military to a great degree. I learned the unbelievable things that people are creating to protect our soldiers at the workshop. And I suspect that technology is a very big part of what goes on in making decisions about what to do next in defending our country. I'm especially impressed by the whole idea of drones and being able to keep our people safe and still get the bad guy. So technology is entirely inside of science. It touches on economics in a big way, politics maybe not quite as much, and I think in the United States military, I think it has quite a huge influence. Next is psychology. And psychology is interesting because psychology is a science, of course. My husband is an experimental psychologist, and so he does, scientific experiments. But psychology affects so much. Obviously, every single person in the world has some kind of psychological makeup. So it's very difficult to figure out in an idea map what ideas are connected to psychology. Probably there's a psychology of economics. There is psychology definitely of religion. I've spent a lot of time studying that. Psychology and politics, fascinating stuff. And psychology technology, I didn't know there was such a connection, such a big connection until I went to that workshop. And of course, there is the part of psychology that's sort of outside religion, outside of science, and is, I guess you would call it, an attempt to have a cultural psychology. I want to leave that space as a possibility. I'm not really sure about that, but I've studied a lot of mythology, and I don't think the people who are creating the mythology were thinking of anything scientific, but they definitely have psychological impact, the stories that are in mythology. Next, I wanted to see, so much time is spent on MRIs in the workshop that I wanted to see exactly where MRIs fit in all of this. I decided that they are definitely completely inside the domain of technology, touch on psychology in a big way, and are clearly having an impact on the Pentagon. They're very interested in that subject. You'll notice that a little word popped up, morality. One of the things that Lieutenant Casimir was talking about were, moral questions. And I was thinking about, well, where does morality fit in all of this? Well, I had an interesting discussion with one of the scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and it was his opinion that morality really doesn't come into the picture until after you've created the technology. Then you have to decide about the morality. Taking his lead, morality is definitely in religion, politics. There's some psychology in it, and it's very difficult to see how morality fits in the idea map. So I'm gonna leave that a big question mark. Philosophy, that's pretty much my bailiwick, and philosophy, of course, is the parent of all the academic subjects. But what does it have to say about these particular domains of knowledge? Well, philosophy, of course, has been talking about cultures practically since the beginning, since Plato, Western philosophy. And there is a goal in philosophy to try to get outside of culture. That's Plato's great getting outside of the cave. Philosophy has something to say to economics. It actually is economics is a subset of philosophy, which many people don't quite understand. They think economics is really about financials, but economics is really about theory. Um, Philosophy definitely has something to say to politics, something to say to psychology, something to say to science, uh, and something to say to religion. So the domain of philosophy is pretty wide. I don't think philosophy, although I crossed to technology circle, I don't think philosophy has a whole lot to say to MRIs. So I didn't connect those two. And I did not connect it to the military either, because I know there are lots and lots and lots of philosophical questions in the military, but I think of the military as having less a philosophic bent than a practical bent. And um, I'll leave that for discussion. Behavior. This entire workshop is about trying to see what influences behavior, and I don't know where to put behavior. It's possibly in everything. Where it landed was in the circles of politics, a little bit in science, a little bit in psychology, a little bit in religion. Philosophy is not so concerned with behavior. Philosophy tends to look at the theoretical rather than the actual. But the problem with where I put it is that it isn't even connected to the Pentagon. So I'm going to have to maybe redo this, or we'll have to think some more about the connections between these ideas. Finally, neuropsychology. I noted that many of the speakers in the workshop, in the narrative network workshop, were into neuropsychology. I put the neuropsychology, of course, it's inside of psychology, inside of technology, inside of MRIs, and left it out of the circle of religion. I don't think they're interested in that. Perhaps I should have connected up a little bit more to philosophy. I don't think it is connected to economics or politics. And so those are the domains of knowledge that I think we're going to be working on in this project. I'd be interested in hearing anybody's ideas of where they think I may have gone wrong in these connections. And I just noticed that the word psychology is not sitting in the psychology circle, but you can see that it's a light green circle. Okay, so next, discussion.